Hey guys, welcome back. So today we got a Coleman Powermate generator. It's a 5,000 watt generator with a Subaru engine. And pretty much the normal story, it will not start. When I went to buy it, the person selling it did demonstrate that it runs with starting fluid. And the engine sounded good, but it would only run for a few seconds. So not long enough to validate that it makes power, but long enough to know that it has spark. So first order is obviously to get that carb off, get it cleaned up, get it running, and make sure it makes power. And assuming that all checks out, then there's a number of things on here that do need to be addressed. Just starting with the front here, this GFCI outlet does not work, thus the X's. I did check the oil. It's full, but very dark. Of course, the stator's pretty rusty, so that might need to be lightly sanded and painted. Coming around to the engine side, obviously recoil is a little bit loose. The on-off switch works, but when you flip it to on, it actually can be turned past on, which is then off again. So, I think I have an extra switch, so we can deal with that. Carburetor, obviously we're going to pull that off and clean it. The choke here feels weird, and I don't know if you can see, but it's pretty loose. So something isn't quite right there. So when I take the carb apart, I'll take a closer look at what's going on there. Coming around to this side, nothing obvious wrong other than dirty and rusty. And the wheels, the axles are bent and the wheels are rusted. So there's a bunch of things here that need to be dealt with, including probably cutting this lock off since I don't have the combination. But let's start with the carburetor and see what we get. All right, so this carburetor has a drain screw. So I'm going to pull that off and just see if maybe it's just water. This machine was stored outside, so I'm sure water has gotten into the system. All right, so it's kind of hard to see, I think, on camera, but you see that line running across, not the very top of the cup here, but this line down there. That's water, and you can kind of see, but that goes pretty high up on the bottom side as well. So I mean, half of what came out of the carburetor is water, and that is enough to keep this machine from running. And I would almost bet money on it that if I tried to start it right now, that it would run. Whether it would run perfectly, I don't know. But, this machine's probably about 10 years old, and, I think I probably should clean it. Of course, if I don't clean it, it'll need to be cleaned, right? And if I clean it, it probably will not need to be cleaned. But anyway, I'm gonna pop it off anyway and just give it a bath. This came off pretty easily. Usually it's like stuck. The gasket is stuck. Even the airbox came off real easily, and cleanly. So I don't know if someone's been in here or kind of what the story is there. But anyway, let me get this clamp off and open up the carb. What the heck? That looks like a piece of cardboard. I won't judge. Not too bad. Oh, that jet's clean. A little bit of junk in there. Okay, good. So get everything off that's gonna come off. I'm just gonna clean this up now in the ultrasonic. Alright, so I went to siphon the fuel out. I thought all the water that was gonna come out had come out in the carburetor, but I was wrong. I just pumped some into this cup. I don't know if you can see this, but only that very, very top, like 1/4 of an inch, is actually gas. Everything underneath it, I think, is water. So this whole tank has to be drained. This gas is bad, and it has to be recycled. All right, so I'm going to start with the pilot jet. Just want to make sure it's all the way in there. All right, this is the main jet. It's brass. It's a soft metal. You do not want to tighten this too tight. Okay, good. Let's put it back on. Okay, I know I was joking a little bit about this right here. This is definitely a cereal box. I can see a K down there, so for all I know, it's Special K. But they did a good job cutting out this diameter, and I think it's going to be just fine for testing. And of course, if it runs all right, I will purchase the correct gasket for that location. All right, so the filter was missing from the airbox. I do have a Subaru filter handy, so I'm going to put that in. These filters are supposed to be oiled. All right, not the nicest day here, but let's fire this thing up and see what it does. All right, starts and runs. It's actually hard to find the off position on that switch, so probably dig into that next. The engine does sound slow, so I'm going to go get the hertz meter and see what it's running at. Okay, so I brought it up to 60, almost. I had to turn that throttle spring quite a bit to do that, so I'm not sure if there's something wrong with that spring, so I'm going to bring it inside and take a closer look. All right, so just taking a closer look here, I did turn this in quite a bit. You might see where the clean threads are. So it was all the way out there, and it was running at around 52 hertz. So I did bring it in quite a bit. The throttle spring does seem kind of weak, so I'm guessing there's nothing really bad going on here. Anyway, since the engine's warm, I am changing this old oil. And it was kind of a pain to start because this recoil wasn't going all the way in, and it just doesn't have enough spring to it. So definitely going to work on this next, as well as the switch. Make it a lot easier to start and a lot easier to shut off. Alright, so this original switch only has one wire, so I was wondering how is it getting the ground, and from what I can tell, it's using the body of the blower housing to do that. This other switch I have has two wires, and I was testing, for continuity between the wires when the switch is set to off. Couldn't get it. Then finally realized there's a brass terminal here. Like the original switch, it gets the ground from the blower housing, and when I switch this to off, the black wire is connected to ground. This orange wire, I can't figure out what it does. And in this case, I don't think I need it. So I'm just going to connect the black to the black and tighten it down, and we should be good to go. Okay, so now that the ignition on-off switch is taken care of, I am going to see if I can replace this. I went to the hardware store and got a GFI outlet, 20 amp, just like this one. This, just so you know, these buttons do not function. There's no power output, and when you plug something in, nothing's grabbing the prongs. The plug just kind of falls out. So this plug is useless and potentially dangerous the way that it is now. So in order to get to this, I do need to remove these screws, which look pretty rusted in. So hopefully that comes off without a fight. And also on the back of this panel, you can unplug, the wires coming from the stator. Just like that. So let me get you set up in a stand and see if those screws are gonna come out of there. Okay, not too bad. I did have to loosen the gas tank to get the clearance to get the that control panel out, which probably isn't a bad thing. This will allow me to kind of sand down that stator and throw a little bit of paint on it. Yeah, I'm not sure why, but there's these little plastic tabs here, which I think are, so if you're pushing wires in on each side, it kind of keeps them separated, but in this case, I need it to go in flat. And that piece of plastic is gonna be a problem. But not anymore. Okay, X's are gone, new outlet installed. This is pretty much done. I think I'm gonna leave it off for now and just, while I have this thing off, just brush this loose rust off, and I'll probably put a little bit of paint on there. Okay, so both of these axles for these wheels are bent pretty badly, and this wheel is also rusted pretty badly. So I did have a matching wheel from a similar generator that had a bad stator. So I'm going to swap the wheels out and see if this bolt will work with this, which will straighten that wheel out, and then I just need to find another bolt for the other side, and the wheels should be then in good shape. All right, so a few things real quick here. I did just take the tank off. It allows better access to the stator. You know, I've lightly brushed all the loose rust off, so I'm going to put a little bit of paint on there. I also removed the muffler, mostly so that I could gain access over here to paint. And, you know, I took a quick look online. A new muffler is about $20. And I was thinking of just spending the $20, get a nice new muffler, instead of that rusty thing that was on there. But I guess before I do that, I do have some stove paint that I'm gonna try on here. I mean, there's nothing wrong with this mechanically. I already knocked off a lot of the loose rust, so I'm gonna keep going and just get it, you know, as smooth as I can. Put some stove paint on there and see what happens. Worst case, I'll spend the 20 bucks on a new muffler, but who knows? It's worth a try to bring this one back. All right, so this is the spark arrestor. These do need to be cleaned once in a while. I don't know how well it shows up. This one's not too bad, but there is some carbon buildup. I've seen generators where it gets really bad to the point where the engine will not run. All right, so this muffler came out a lot better than I kind of imagined. So I'm glad I did that, you know, painting it instead of buying a new one. Also the stator came out really well. It almost looks too good compared to the rest of the machine. So anyway, I'm very satisfied with how both of these things came out. So now I'm just going to put the machine back together and run it for a bit and see how this holds out under temperature. Okay, got the proper gasket now. Let's see. Okay, I also ordered a new throttle spring. So I'm going to turn this back to where it was, put the new spring on and then reset the engine speed. Okay, so we got the new gasket, the new spring. I'm just going to tighten the airbox back on and we'll bring it out and see what it does. Okay, so hopefully this will be the final test. Really just looking to see that the new GFCI outlet works. I'm also going to test it by simulating a short. I want to make sure it shuts off. I also want to see how that new paint holds up on the muffler, as well as reset the engine speed with the new spring. So let's give it a go. All right, so everything's working as expected. It's raining now, so I'm going to be wrapping up. Anyway, I hope this helps someone. Thanks for watching.